Hey, Emily.
Hey, Stephanie.
You want to do a podcast?
Absolutely. Hey, Cycle Cats. Before we get into today's episode, we wanted to come on and make a big announcement.
We will be releasing a whole new show under the Cycle Chats umbrella.
We wanted a space where you can get more education, more inspiration, and more empowerment.
So we created Sync Ups with Cycle Chats, a show where we bring back some of our favorite guests.
Each guest will have a 4-part mini-series that will drop the first 4 Saturdays of every month.
So if you have a favorite guest that you want to hear more from, please reach out to us on our website, www.cyclechats.com, or DM us on Instagram at cyclechats.
The first episode of Sync Ups will release on January 1st, and we are so excited to share it with you cats.
So without further ado, let's get back to the episode with our first Sync Ups guest and our friend, the lovely Miss Audrey Geyer. Enjoy!
Welcome to Cycle Chats, a podcast to destigmatize what it means to be a woman. This is episode 25, Menstrual Cycle 101, where we talk to a woman whose knowledge of women's cycles is unparalleled, whose support of her fellow sisters is nothing short of amazing, and who are lucky to call a friend, Audrey. Welcome to the podcast, Audrey.
I am so excited to be here, Emily and Stephanie.
I'm excited that we met you. I feel lucky.
I know, me too. It's been so cool getting to talk with you guys over the last few months, and especially after spending so much time away from friends. I feel like this year has truly blessed me with making new friends who are so aligned with my mission, like you guys.
I could not agree more with that statement.
So can you share a little bit about what you do? Because we know, and we are mind blown by it.
So how did you get into this field?
So growing up, hormones were a topic of conversation in my household because both of my parents were doctors and my father was an endocrinologist, which is a hormone specialist. And so I had early exposure to these conversations that a lot of people don't. But at the same time, I never wanted to go into medicine because I saw my dad working 80 hours a week for more than 20 years. I mean, he used to have half a day off. It was crazy. And I think that in a way, he really influenced and laid the foundation for me knowing how important hormones were. But then my personal interest really took off in my early 20s because I dealt with problems with my menstrual cycle. And then I was also diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid that's connected with hypothyroidism. I had also had hypothyroidism. I'm in remission for both now, which a lot of people don't even believe is possible. And I think, everyone's journey is different. But for me, backing way up and going to where my problems started and challenging this idea that it was normal for women to feel like crap, or that it was normal for me to have these symptoms that were so obviously linked to an autoimmune condition, allowed me to start digging into my lifestyle and holistic practices that could not only help me feel relief from the symptoms I was experiencing, but could also help really inform how I lived my life in, this holistic and balanced way. And, I have gone from at 22 dealing with awful fatigue and painful periods and almost 2 full weeks of PMS to now living in remission from thyroid disease, having PMS-free cycles, and really seeing how female hormones and how our menstrual cycle can be an advantage for women. It's just that we aren't taught how our bodies work. So I hope that will change. And my job now is being a high performance women's wellness coach. And I teach ambitious and health interested women how to use their hormones to their advantage so that they can live PMS and burnout free lives and really learn to use their hormones as superpowers, because they are.
And that's something that I wish we would actually teach in sex ed. If I would have learned that when I was younger and I first started getting my period, I could not even imagine where I'd be right now in my thought processes. Because you're touching on all of these really important factors. I still go through the week leading up to it, the week of, the week after, the painful periods, feeling the fatigue. And how many times have you said, I just have my period? And everyone's like, oh, okay, that's totally normal for you to feel that. I don't think me being able to sleep for 24 hours is like a normal. Yes, it's part of it, but I don't know how normal it is to feel that every single time you have your period.
Right. I completely agree with what you said about learning this in sex ed. I think that what we're taught is that you're going to have a period, you're going to bleed for a few days or a week out of the month. You're told that it's because women can have babies, and then you're taught how to use a tampon and a pad. And that tends to be the extent of health education around women's cycles and women's health. And I think really, it can certainly include those things. But what we should be talking to young girls about, especially who are years and years away from motherhood, is that they should also be taught about how to manage their energy, how to manage their emotions. They should be taught not only what is going on for a week in their bodies, but what is going on all month long. Because what that leads to is women thinking that their cycle is something that happens once a month for 3 to 7 days. They don't see that a cycle is something that happens for the entire month, usually being a 21 to 35 day range. You mentioned dealing with insomnia and other problems that can come up around, either before or during your period. And to be honest, PMS is not normal. PMS is common, but common and normal are two totally different things. And, aside from the fact that yes, our uterus will contract to shed the lining, there may be some mild cramps. If those are interfering with someone being able to live their life, if somebody is having to double dose Midol and ibuprofen, if somebody is having to get on the floor in fetal position or is throwing up or is also having migraines, that is not normal. Aside from childbirth, uterus contraction should never prevent us from being able to live our lives.
Way to call me out like that, Audrey.
Totally not a call out to you.
No, it's good. We need to hear it. I have started to come, like, this is a new thing that's been happening, is I've been getting really bad headaches when I get my period. And I'm like, oh, this just must be something new I'm getting now that I'm getting older, and I'm off birth control now for a few years. But that migraine, headaches, all that's not normal. So for somebody who is becoming more aware that these side effects really aren't normal, how do you suggest, well, I guess the real question is, where does that come from? So what are the factors that play into those? Is it just hormones, or is it outer factors as well that play into the type of period you have?
I think that answer specifically would depend on the individual. So I'm going to step out a little, take this at a little more of a broad view. And I think that it's important for women to know who are dealing with these symptoms, regardless of the specific thing that is causing it, that PMS is caused by something that is either internal or environmental that is causing your hormones to be out of alignment and is causing a disruption in your cycle. And also, because it's a cycle and because we have 4 phases that each layer on and lend themselves to the next, that when there is a problem in one phase of the cycle, it was because something earlier in the cycle went wrong most of the time. So we can't take this one part of the cycle and take that out and spot treat it. We have to really view it holistically and look at how the hormones are communicating with one another all month long.
That just blew my friggin' mind.
I remember our first conversation with you, Audrey. It was over the phone, and you mentioned the 4 phases of the cycle. And I literally was like, you were like, do you know about them? And I was honestly like, no, I actually have no idea. Can you please explain it to me? You blew my mind. I remember walking away from that conversation. I think Steph and I called each other after, like we usually do. And we were like, oh my God, this girl is amazing. She's so knowledgeable. But I was like, holy crap. Like, how did I go through almost now 29 years of my life? So that's menstruating for 16 years about, maybe longer. How did I not know that there was 4 friggin' phases, man? That is disgusting that I harbor this phase inside of my body biologically, and I didn't know 2 parts of it. There is something seriously wrong with the way that women are being educated about their bodies. It blows my mind. And I have to give you credit because I know the last time I had my period, I think I even messaged you. I was like, I am in love. Like I just found my rhythm and my groove, and I just was able to use my follicular state, all of that stuff to really pump out and achieve what I needed to, and like give myself a break when I was in my luteal phase and all of that. So I have to give you credit because you taught me that. And it has literally changed my life. I cannot wait to go into like the next phase and just like start being able to adapt this much more frequently so that I don't even have to like think about it, but it saved me. So thank you. You taught me and you gave me knowledge that I will now be able to use to teach my nieces who are 7 and 9. They're going to be menstruating pretty soon and they need to be educated enough. And I can hopefully teach, if I'm blessed with a daughter, I can teach her. You are giving such a great gift to both Stephanie and I and the listeners, because I bet if we took a poll, most people are going to be like me and they're not going to know that 4 phases of your cycle exist.
Absolutely. And, it allows us to change the script from talking about menstrual cycles as something that is embarrassing or inconvenient at best to then being something that is really amazing and doesn't just involve your ovaries and uterus and how you feel for 1 week out of the month. It involves not only all month, but it involves how you work, your brain, your mood, your energy, how you live. And so to share those 4 phases with everyone that's listening, we start with the menstrual phase. That is the easiest place to start tracking and becoming aware of our cycles because we typically know exactly when that's happening. So you'll have about 3 to 7 days. That is your period. It's known as the menstrual phase. And during that time, your hormones are actually at a low point. And I think that's important to know because we have this kind of stereotype or misnomer that says, oh, she's on her period, she's so hormonal. And the irony of that is that no, she is actually the least hormonal when she's on her period. So then we move into the follicular phase. And the follicular phase lasts about 7 to 10 days. Now, some people will refer to the follicular phase as being the menstrual and the non-bleeding phase leading up to ovulation. I refer to those things as 2 separate phases because they have very different feelings and personalities, as I'm sure you can understand. So during the follicular phase, your hypothalamus tells your pituitary gland to start releasing FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone then communicates with your ovaries. So all hormones are messengers. Anything that is endocrine is something that communicates with a distant part of the body. So instead of thinking ourselves as these different parts, it reminds us that we're this whole human being, right? It's all connected. So it's communicating with our ovaries and telling our ovaries to start producing more estrogen every day. And it works as this little ping or pulse. So that follicle stimulating hormone pulses and that estrogen begins to rise day by day more and more. And along with it, our mood and our energy rise too. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that estrogen is an anabolic hormone. It's a growth hormone. So she wants us to be able to get up and go and grow. That's why we grow curves as women. She's responsible for the production of breast tissue during puberty and things like that, and also can help grow lean muscle. And another reason that our mood and energy rises is also because she stimulates the dopamine and serotonin receptors in our brain. So that communication started in our brain, and then the estrogen is also pinging back up to our brain as well. So our whole body is really involved in this. And then as estrogen continues to rise, your hypothalamus will once again communicate with your pituitary gland and tell your pituitary gland to release another hormone called luteinizing hormone. You have a luteinizing hormone surge just before ovulation that causes an egg to mature And during ovulation, which typically it only lasts about 24 hours, but there will be a fertile window leading up to that where energy is very high. There are changes in cervical mucus and things like that for women who are tracking that cycle. And during ovulation, your estrogen and testosterone peak. So they are the highest they will be all month long. And that makes you your most outgoing, your most communicative. The communication centers in your brain are lit up. It makes you extremely strong and extremely resilient to stress. And then after ovulation, you enter your luteal phase. And during the luteal phase, a lot of women will know that they are in their luteal phase if they are tracking basal body temperature every day. Your body temperature will actually rise during this part of your phase thanks to a hormone called progesterone. And progesterone increases our thermogenesis, which is amazing for your metabolism, but she is also very anti-stress. So whereas estrogen was this outgoing, vibrant hormone, progesterone is kind of her more introverted, detail-oriented sister. And she wants you to change gears during this time. She wants you to simplify your life, and she wants you to be aware of your surroundings, and she wants things to be organized and relaxing. But she has amazing capabilities, not only that from thermogenesis that I just mentioned, but she's also prothyroid and is also even a natural diuretic. So a lot of women experience a lot of bloating before their period, but we actually have a hormone that is directly combating that. And many times she just needs the opportunity to really shine by us making those little tweaks in our lifestyle that honor our cyclical nature as women. And then after progesterone drops at the end of that luteal phase, that triggers the onset of our next menstrual phase, and the cycle begins all over again.
Can I ask you, you said during your ovulation, that's when like you're at your peak. Now, is that for all of your fertile window, or is that just on the 24 hours that you have your ovulation?
You will feel yourself, your energy, and your mood picking up day by day through the follicular phase. So during your fertile window, you will feel quite similar mood and energy wise to how you will on that day of ovulation. So you can definitely use that to your advantage as far as planning goes and taking those actions towards your goals.
That's something I've noticed too with like ovulation was something I started really tracking because I have a tracker on my phone. I started noticing little similarities every time it came around. And I'm like, that is fascinating that this is just a naturally occurring thing. And then after meeting you and talking about it, I was like, oh, like utilizing it to my advantage wasn't even something I thought of because the only thing you think of is, oh, you just use it to try to get pregnant. And that's it. And that's just not true.
There's so many other uses, and whether you are a student or you're running a business or you're a female athlete or whatever it is, we really want to know what our bodies are doing so that we can use that to our advantage, because it's so true. We have this amazing calendar that our bodies give us, and it can become predictable. And when it becomes predictable, we can be proactive and it can be useful.
So I know Steph just brought up the app, and I remember one time we spoke, you were like, I don't really like the apps because they're only dealing with those two phases of the cycle. So is there an app that you can suggest? Because I know that I also have the app on my phone, like the Flow app, I think, and it doesn't offer me the other two phases. It only does the ovulation and the menstrual phase of the cycle. So is there an app out there that actually helps you track the different phases?
You know, I think apps can be great. I think it depends on how we use them. What I don't want women to do is to rely on an app to tell them what their cycle is doing without giving the app that feedback. There is a term that is very outdated, but you guys might be familiar with, maybe have heard it before, called the rhythm method or the calendar method. And that is essentially the outdated, antiquated, unreliable version of fertility awareness method or natural family planning. And the reason it's antiquated and outdated is because it's based on the assumption that women are going to just have 28-day cycles and ovulate on day 14. So if you try to plan for or prevent pregnancy from day 9 to 14. That's all you have to do, and then you're good. And the reason why cycle tracking and fertility awareness has been given this reputation of being not very efficient is because of that outdated method. When women are using consistent, reliable tracking based on their biomarkers, not just what an app or an algorithm is telling them, when they're tracking basal body temperature and when they're tracking cervical fluid, they can actually have 99% efficacy for preventing pregnancy. It is at this point can become just as reliable as something like an IUD or an implant or other forms of hormonal birth control. It just takes that consistency and getting to know and learn your cycle. So I think the apps can be fabulous because we can have this technology, this femtech, as they call it, in the palm of our hands. But it's a two-way street. And I see a lot of women who think that they're tracking their cycle just because they are marking on an app when their period is. And that is a totally fine place to start. I just want women to know that that is only the starting point and to not stay there, because I want them to be in control of their own bodies and their own lives and to be able to really become body literate so that they can use this to their full advantage. So flow is a really common one. I really like Clue, and my personal favorite is Temp Drop, which is also a device that is used to measure basal body temperature. I wear it on my upper arm every single night, and it measures my basal body temperature every 10.5 seconds. And this is really great because I did use an oral thermometer in the morning for several years. And this really gave me my freedom back, because in order to take your basal body temperature in the morning, you have to do it first thing. You have to wake up at the same time every day. And you also cannot sit up, get up, or roll over before doing it. So that does take some discipline.
Wow.
And it's doable. You can buy a $10 thermometer, basal body temperature thermometer on Amazon and go for that. And it will give you great data. And I love how affordable that is and how much it can give you. But for me, it was worth the investment of paying more to have that band on my arm, and it measures all throughout the night. And then it's also something that can be used by women with irregular sleep patterns. It can be used by women with PCOS or who have irregular cycles. It can be used by breastfeeding women and, all these other situations where women have needs, but maybe that thermometer wouldn't work directly. And I think that, especially for women who have irregular cycles or where maybe postpartum, I think that is even more of a reason to track, because it will allow you to see, maybe you don't ovulate every month, but maybe sometimes you do. And then when you track, it allows you to have that data so that you can be more prepared. And, having an irregular cycle has otherwise made tracking or charting not accessible to them.
So you said something and it triggered my writing a question. Do some women not ovulate every month? Is that like something that I also just kind of missed in health class that we were not taught?
I was just about to ask the exact same question. I was like, wait.
There can be a number of different reasons why women might not ovulate every month. PCOS, being a syndrome, has a spectrum of different symptoms, and not all women with PCOS will have all of them, but a marker for PCOS can be having anovulatory cycles. Another really common one is hypothalamic amenorrhea. Amenorrhea is a missing period. To have the diagnosis, it has to be missing for at least either 3 or 6 months. And I'm not a medical professional, so I don't deal with that diagnosing anyway. But essentially what hypothalamic amenorrhea is when there is a disconnection between the ovaries and the hypothalamus, so the brain. And that can be due to stress. It can also be due to not having enough energy availability, which is directly related to calories. So a lot of women who, maybe they're not obese, but they go on this really intense fitness journey, or they really want to lean out and perhaps have the best of intentions, but there can be consequences related to our cycles. And I think that that is another reason why women need to learn so much about their cycles, because for a long time that's been seen as a benefit. Women haven't always really wanted to have their periods, and they have been told, oh, well, if you're an athlete and you miss, you no longer have a period, great, you don't have to deal with that inconvenience. But then they also end up missing out on many benefits that athletic women need, such as anabolic benefits, those growth hormone benefits of estrogen and testosterone, or the fact that as long as we have our cycles, women actually produce more human growth hormone than men do. So when you give up, maybe that supposed inconvenience of having a period, you would also be giving up, unfortunately, the benefits of having one too. But yes, there are several different reasons why women might not have a cycle. Another one can also be surgery. So if a woman has had to have an ovary removed, then she might not always have a cycle.
So I wanted to know, because I don't know, or I don't know the whole thing, but I wanted to know what the difference between cycle syncing and tracking your cycle is.
Yeah, so the two complement each other, but they are two different things. Tracking your cycle is the act of starting with that menstrual phase, tracking when you're on your period, and then continuing to track different biomarkers and symptoms that you're having daily throughout the month. So you're getting that really holistic cyclical pattern that you can use for fertility awareness and, things like that. But it's really giving you that data about what your body is doing. Whereas cycle syncing is taking that knowledge and then partnering it with different aspects of your lifestyle, such as what you eat, how you work out, how you work, your social calendar, or even how you practice self-care. And what that allows us to do is to honor our cyclical nature as women through our lifestyle. And it ends up doing things like giving women more energy, having less stress, bringing, those cortisol levels down. It can also result in less pain and inflammation, which can contribute to pain-free periods and PMS-free cycles. So it's really amazing. And there are so many ways to practice cycle syncing, and that can be unique to the individual and what works for her lifestyle or what symptoms or goals she wants to work on.
So my next question now is also influenced by your stories last week of what are some myths about our menstrual cycles, because I'm sure we have all heard them coming from a woman that only knew that there was 2 phases of her menstrual cycle.
There are a lot, and I want to share some that I think are very practical. Like, we all know that there are myths about menstrual cycles, being dirty or shameful, and we all know now by this point that that's not true. But for example, I think that a really common one is when women say that their period arrived early or late. That is usually because they are relying on that app or that calendar to tell them that their period is starting on day 28, and they're not tracking their whole cycle. If you're tracking your whole cycle, then you can see if ovulation occurred a few days early or a few days later. Ovulation is what determines when your period is going to happen. And you can also look, say you're not using that basal body temperature tracking, or you're not tracking cervical mucus at this point. If you've been using an app, then you can probably scroll back in that data and see that there is some variation on your cycle as is. So even if you're a woman that typically has a 28-day cycle, you can probably see where some months you've had a 30-day, some months you've had a 26-day, and that there's a normal range. So it is a bit of a myth or a misnomer that your period has arrived a few days early or late. Your period arrives exactly on time. It's just that your body has these biomarkers. Your body is sovereign, but wants to give you this information about when it's going to occur. And I think another one is that, and this is a little controversial, although it shouldn't be, that women are still having their periods who are on hormonal birth control. If a woman is on hormonal birth control and she's not having ovulation, then she may have a monthly bleed, but that is breakthrough or withdrawal bleeding. It is not the same as a menstrual phase, because a period is caused by ovulation and is caused by the ebb and flow of our hormones. Hormonal birth control typically works by flooding the body with synthetic hormones so that the communication between the ovaries and the hypothalamus cuts off. And so there aren't these, different waves and ebbs and flows of hormones throughout the month. So that has stopped meaning so has the cycle. The cycle is having each part of that. So, that can be something that is really confusing. A lot of women have been told that hormonal birth control can regulate or balance their hormones, or it helps them have better periods. But the truth is, it is just suppressing the cycle. So they may temporarily not have symptoms that occurred before. They're also giving up those benefits, which is a personal choice and is totally fine. But I am pro informed consent here, and, want women to be aware of how it's really working, which is by suppressing and stopping their cycle. Even if they have that monthly bleed, it's not a period.
Yep. And that's a big thing that needs to be educated in schools, in the doctor's office, instead of just giving this magic pill to cure all. Because Steph and I both have been on hormonal birth control. I was on it for a very short amount of time because it just did not agree with my system, and it didn't work for me.
I was on it for about 6 or 7 years, and I started feeling massively depressed. And I felt like I could never, no matter how hard I worked out, like get any muscle. Like there was just not, I didn't like it. But I think it's important to say, because I have a couple girlfriends who use birth control and they're like, I love it. I have no problems with it. It helps me. I feel connected with it. So that's why I like that you said, look, it's your choice. Just educate yourself. Don't spread misinformation, because you might feel like it's regulating, and to a certain extent it is, but that is the actuality of it, because I've done a lot of research on it myself.
Women on hormonal birth control have hormone levels that are closer to menopause than menstruation.
See, that I did not know.
Because of the levels it's suppressed, because during menopause, you produce less sex hormones. That's when your cycle is stopping. So although they are, of course, not technically in menopause, their hormonal levels will reflect closer to a menopausal woman than a menstruating woman. And I am so grateful that hormonal birth control has contributed to the economic and social advancement of women. But even when it comes to this idea that women think that they're having a period while on birth control, that was actually invented. Scientists invented that during the 60s, when hormonal birth control was so controversial, and especially with the political contributions of the Catholic Church, was extremely controversial. And so scientists essentially offered this way for women to still feel like they were having a period, or for their partners to think that they were, as hormonal birth control was being created and legalized. And that even predates the dial pack. And, it was when birth control was coming in vials, and women would either skip a vial or take half of a vial for 1 week so that they would still have that withdrawal bleeding.
Wow. Isn't that wild too? Is like, and how often do you hear from partners? I mean, I've gotten this, and it was part of the reason, but not the full reason. I got on it because I was having really bad periods. So my gynecologist said, let's get you on some birth control. I had bad acne, and it did, for the most part, help clear it up. And then other stuff started happening, and I'm like, I'll take the pimples. Like, this is not worth it. But I've had very, very many partners say, well, just get on birth control so we don't have to use a condom. And I'm just kind of like, and I get where that comes from, but like, my God, we're not even informing the men how this works. Are you kidding me?
We're not. And when hormonal birth control was made for men, it didn't get FDA approved because they had the same side effects that women have dealt with for years. It's truly seen as, a woman's burden to have to deal with all of these side effects. The FDA doesn't want men to have to go through the same thing.
That infuriates me. I'm raging right now.
Oh,
My
man.
God, can you even? I just get so absolutely worked up when it comes to that, because that's insane to me. It's insane.
I hope we get there one day where men, in health classes, these boys are being educated without them like snickering or not understanding that they also need to know this, because we as women, right? I'll bring it and then I'll take it back on the train tracks. But we as women are always in our lives being forced to visualize ourselves in a male role, right? In the books that we read in school, all of this in education. So the minute that the coin is flipped and the man has to therefore see themselves through a woman character or as a woman, they're being apologized to. Why? I just don't understand. And it's that lack of education and it's that lack of understanding that therefore creates a huge gap between men and women. That's my rant on that. So my next question, since we have kind of gotten on this empowerment talk and this educational talk, and that's what this is all about, right? I want to know what women empowerment means to you, because I can tell from my personal experience, you are probably the most uplifting woman that I have ever met. You put the support of others at the forefront, and that is the most genuine and beautiful quality that I have ever seen. So I give you so much credit, Audrey, because that is definitely a part of who you are in your person.
Thank you so much, Emily. I received that. Earlier, I talked about wanting women to be well enough to enjoy their progress. And for me, success is being able to go after the things you want without sacrificing your health in the meantime. And so for me, women's empowerment is getting to a space where we are not just, I think that women can have it all. I think that women deserve to pursue whatever they want, and I want them to be able to do it in their own way. And if that involves saying no to something, if that involves turning something down, if that involves taking all your vacation days, using all your sick days, and asking for more, doing whatever it takes so that every step of the way, you are not only working towards the next thing, but you're enjoying the now. You know, I saw something on Instagram recently that said something along the lines of personal development is great, but don't work so much on personal development that you're not living your life now. And to me, that's the balance. I love personal development. I love health. I love fitness. And I want women to feel like any day they choose is a special occasion. And so they can always stop and feel the fruits of their labor and what they're doing now.
So then my last question for you, Miss Audrey, is what advice would you give your 15-year-old self?
I saw this question. I would tell my 15-year-old self that, ooh, I didn't think I was going to cry, but I think I might, that it's going to turn out better than she expects. Because at 15, I had anxiety. At 15, I was 1 year away from being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. At 15, I had no love for myself, and I did not feel camaraderie or support from other women. And I think that teenagers think that they have to figure it all out. They have to come up with the answers, and they have to come up with this life plan. So when they're 18, they can make the right decision and go to the right college and major in the right thing, because that determines the rest of their life. But it's not true. Life is full of so much possibility and so much opportunity. And so I would tell myself at 15 and any teenager that life has so many more possibilities and so many opportunities than they can even imagine right now. And they're not supposed to know what those all are right now. But if they just keep showing up, they can always change the course they're on. They can always try something new, and life will truly open up for you if you let it.
And I think it's important to continue to say that as we get older. I'm almost 30, and I mean, I'm crying because life is beautiful and there are so many possibilities. And to tell yourself that, like, to say it to other people is easy, but to tell yourself, that's the real tough one. And especially in moments where you just feel like it's not worth it, it is. It's worth it. And I think we need to keep hearing that as women until we're in wheelchairs. It's so important. And I have known you for a short amount of time, but I am proud of what you've gone through, because I think our 15-year-old selves would have all felt the same thing. And I am so proud of you for being the beautiful woman that you are right now. And I hope anybody listening really takes those words and digests them. Life is beautiful and it is worth it. You might not understand it. I might not even understand it right now. But then a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you're going to see it, and then you're going to be in your flow. So thank you for sharing that with us, because I know that that's a vulnerable part of us as women that often gets shunned or called crazy. But I think it's beautiful. That's what I love so much about being a woman, is the emotions. Man, to be able to feel life so intensely, I think that's a wonderful thing. So thank you for sharing that side of you with us.
so much. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that that is part of our gift, and we don't have to tone that down for the sake of others.
Yeah. Oh, Audrey. I mean, I can't thank you enough. And I'm just so thrilled that like we got connected and that you're in my life now. As we were saying before, life is full of possibilities. Life brought us together so that we can therefore cultivate a world that is more educated so that women can feel stronger with their menstrual cycles. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot wait to friggin' meet you in person and give you just the biggest hug, Audrey. I'm so excited. It's going to be such a joyful day, and I look forward to it so full heartedly. So thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you so much. I am so proud to know y'all. I'm so proud of y'all. Y'all are doing incredible things, and I am just so excited to see how that continues to evolve, because this is going to be huge, y'all. Y'all are doing just incredible, incredible things, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
And I want other people to be able to watch your growth as well. So, where can people find you? And do you have any exciting things in the works that we should be keeping our peepers open for?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Audrey S. Geyer. My last name is spelled Geyer, or audreysgeyer.com. I have lots of blog posts, and you can sign up for my email newsletter. I have free guides that women can download to learn more about their health. I also offer one-on-one coaching on a rolling basis, and a few times a year, I'll have different offerings or programs come out that people can jump on during that launch period.
Emily said it. Thank you. Time is precious, and thank you for taking some of yours to spend with some of ours. Thank you for syncing up with us, and to everybody listening, we hope you sync up with us next time.